Well, hello friends and welcome back to my channel. I'm Renee. And today I'm going to talk to you about, I think I got a list of about 8 foods that you're not going to want to store in your pantry. A lot of things you store in your pantry, but some things will go stale, some will grow bacteria, and some will get moldy. And you know, when that happens, because something you spend a lot of money on your food, and when that happens, then it's just a waste of money and your time. So here's a few foods that I've got that some of you may already know this, some of you may not. This is for those of you who don't know. The number one oil that will go rancid within 6 months is olive oil. Sesame oil is another one. You want to store those in your refrigerator. You could store them in your freezer, but anything below like 5 degrees, I think they'll freeze solid. It doesn't ruin them, but they'll freeze solid. So you really don't want to do that. Store them in your fridge is the best way to go. Like garlic infused oil, olive oil. That is not something, I know a lot of people do infused olive oils and they're sitting real pretty on their counter. No, friends, that garlic and that garlic infused olive oil, it has botulinum spores in it, which will grow into botulism. And you all know what botulism will do to you. So if you do any kind of infused oil, especially with olive oil, you're going to want to keep that in your refrigerator. Now you can store, I've got bottles of unopened olive oil. That still needs to be stored in a cool, dark place. Once it's opened though, keep it in the refrigerator. Keep it in the refrigerator. And if you're going to keep olive oil in your pantry, plain olive oil that's not infused, it'll only last up to 6 months. So if you buy olive oil, don't stockpile it, because it's just going to be a waste of your money. It's going to go rancid. So the best thing to do is store olive oil or infused olive oil, sesame oil, oils that are, how do I say this? Oils that are introduced to heat when they're made are ones that will go rancid very quickly. Now you can store coconut oil in your pantry or your cupboard. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. But olive oil and sesame oil, not a good thing. Keep them in your fridge. Okay? And if you do any kind of infused olive oil, just know you don't want to do a whole lot, because it's only going to be good in your refrigerator for about 7 days. So, not a good thing. It's not a good thing to put in your pantry. You'll make your family sick. Number 2 food that you do not want to store in your pantry would be nuts. Nuts. There's oil in nuts. They will go rancid inside of 6 months. They'll get stale and they'll go rancid. The best place to store your nuts, you can store them in the fridge, but I use a lot of nuts, so I keep them in my freezer. They store beautifully in your freezer, and you can get, almost 2 years out of them in the freezer. I know they recommend maybe up to a year, but I've had nuts in my freezer for a couple years, and they're still good. They're very good, and they don't lose their flavor or anything. So that would be the best place to store nuts. And with the nuts, like I make a lot of granola, so I use a lot of nuts and dried fruits. Well, the dried fruits, they're shelf stable. But if you store them in your refrigerator or your freezer, they're going to keep their color and their flavor even longer. You can store them in your pantry, but over a period of time, the color and the flavor is going to dwindle. So if you want to keep them at their peak freshness, keep them in the freezer. The next one, friends, is chocolate. A lot of people ask me about chocolate. Where you store chocolate, where it's best stored. I've got chocolate that I've had for a year. Can I use it? I store my chocolate, like my chocolate chips and chocolates for my baking, in my freezer. can significantly extend the shelf life, putting it in the freezer up to 18 months. If you keep it in your pantry, it's going to be fine for about 6 to 8 months, and then it takes a chance on growing mold. It will get moldy, or the sugar and the cocoa butter will bloom, which means you'll get white spots on your chocolate, or it will turn like a white gray film on it, and then it's no good. Peanut butter is another food. You don't want to store that in your pantry opened. You can store it unopened, but opened. You don't want to store it in there. Because of the oils in it, you know, just like the oils, it will go rancid in about 6 to 8 months. So and I know so many of my friends, you open up their cabinet and there's a jar of peanut butter, and it's like, oh, put that in the fridge. Well, I don't want to use it. It gets real hard in the fridge. Yes, it does, but you know, you can take a little bit out, let it soften up, and use it on your sandwich or whatever you're going to use it for. But it will go rancid, and it will make you sick if you eat it. So you'll know anyway. It just will have a foul smell to it. So keep your peanut butter in your refrigerator. And there's another food that basically is shelf stable, and it even indicates it on the label that it does not need refrigeration, and that is mustard. But you know what, friends? If you keep your mustard outside of the refrigerator, you know, room temperature, within no time, very quickly it will happen. It will lose its beautiful color, and it will start to lose its flavor. So the best way to keep mustard is right in the refrigerator, because it extends the life of it. Mayonnaise is another one that must always be stored in the refrigerator. And I'm only saying this because I had a friend of mine call me the other day, and she said, you know, my kids left the mayonnaise out all night. Do you think it's still okay? No, it's not okay. Fling that out. Mayonnaise contains eggs, and eggs carry salmonella. Now, refrigerating mayo doesn't kill salmonella, but it retards the growth of salmonella. But if you leave it out on the counter for any length of time, anything more than a few hours, you're taking a chance of that salmonella, and it's not a good thing. I don't know if anybody has ever had salmonella poisoning, but it is not fun. I've had it. So always, always, always keep mayonnaise in your refrigerator. And if for some reason your kids leave it out, you know, any great length of time, throw it out, because it's not worth making your family sick. Now, I kept this one for last, and that's flour. A lot of people never give it a second thought about keeping flour in their pantry. I do, you know, I keep flour in my pantry, but I use flour just about every other day, and I go through a lot of flour. However, you know, the white and whole grain is best stored in the freezer. White flour has a little longer shelf life, but whole grain flour contains the wheat and the germ, and that contains oil, so that flour is going to go rancid. That flour you're going to want to store in the freezer. And not only that, it's best to even store your white flour in the freezer. That's the best place to store your flours. Now, if you've got, you know, if you buy, like me, I buy 50-pound bags. I come home with that bag of flour, and it goes in my freezer for about 2 days. You know, they say 2 to 4 days. Some people say 2, some say 4, but 2 to 4 days I keep it in the freezer. That'll kill the weevils and the larvae, anything in it. And then I bring it in my pantry and I put it in my airtight container. But my flour, even that 50-pound bag, never lasts me beyond 2 months. It's all gone in 3 months, and flour will last in your pantry up to 6 months. So if you want to stockpile flour, don't do it. Don't do it. The best thing I can tell you to do if you want to have flour at any given time is to get yourself wheat berries. When they're stored properly, you know, wheat berries will last about 30 years. And you can grind it yourself. Get yourself a food mill. You can grind your own wheat berries and use that flour. That's the best way to do it if you want to store it for a long term. But if you're just going to store it in your pantry and leave it sitting there, it's not going to last. So there, friends, is just a few foods that you're not going to want to store in your pantry. So I hope that helps you when you're thinking about, stockpiling a few things in the pantry. Whatever you buy, you're going to want to store it properly so that you get the longest shelf life out of it, and you don't lose your money. You don't lose your money when something goes bad because you stored it wrong. So there you have it, friends. I hope that helps you, and I hope the pantry series that I'm doing is helping you. I hope it's helping to inspire you to get your pantry going. And next we're going to talk about, our next video is going to be about frugal ways to stock your pantry. So we'll be talking about that next. You all have a good day, and thanks for watching.